For the first time in years, the air over Midtown felt wrong. Not windy, not cold, just thin, like something had been cut and taped back together. A bright seam opened in the sky above a busy street. It was not lightning. It was a clean tear, like someone had pulled a zipper through blue paint. People stopped walking. Phones came up. Someone laughed like it was a prank. Then a small figure dropped out of the tear. He fell fast for half a second, then slowed in the air as if the world had decided not to hurt him. He landed on the roof of a city bus with a soft thump that barely rocked it. He looked like a teen boy with blue hair and a calm face. He wore simple clothes that did not match the brands around him. He blinked at the billboards, the glass towers, and the screens showing smiling heroes. His eyes were curious, not scared. A delivery truck swerved when the driver looked up. The truck clipped a taxi. Metal screamed. The taxi spun. People yelled and ran. The blue-haired boy moved. One moment he was on the bus, the next moment he was beside the taxi, between the car and a group of pedestrians. A clear wall appeared in the air. It looked like smooth glass, but it bent light in a strange way. The taxi slammed into it and stopped like it had hit an invisible building. No one got crushed. A woman stumbled on the sidewalk and almost fell under the truck's front wheel. The blue-haired boy reached out, and her body slid backward as if a gentle hand had pulled her by the collar. She landed safely on her back, blinking at the sky. The boy looked at her and smiled. "Are you okay?" he asked. The woman stared at him like she had seen a ghost. Then she nodded so fast her hair whipped. More phones rose. Someone shouted, "Is that a soup?" Another person yelled, "Where's Homelander?" The boy tilted his head, listening. Sirens approached. Not just police, special units, VOTS units. Across town, far from cameras and crowds, another seam opened, inside a concrete room with thick steel doors. The room was lit by harsh white lights. Men with rifles stood in a line. A red alarm blinked above them. On the wall, a sign read, "Authorized personnel only." The air split open in silence. Cold poured out like breath in winter. A tall figure stepped through. He was not a man. He was a skeleton wearing heavy black robes trimmed with gold. Red lights burned in his eye sockets. A crown-like halo floated behind his skull, and strange jewels shined on his chest. The guards froze for half a heartbeat. Then training kicked in. "Down!" someone screamed. Rifles snapped up. A hail of bullets hit the skeleton's ribs, his skull, his chest. The bullets did nothing. They sparked and dropped to the floor like tiny pieces of rain. The skeleton looked at the men. He did not flinch. He did not blink. Inside him, a human fear tried to rise. "This is not Nazarick. This is not a place I know. Where am I? Who did this?" But the fear hit a wall. His undead body did not let panic take control. It cooled everything down, like ice on a flame. He raised one gloved hand. A dark pressure rolled out. It was not wind. It was a feeling, like stepping into deep water. The guard's knees buckled. One dropped his rifle. Another tried to pull a trigger and could not move his finger. The skeleton spoke in a low, calm voice. "Lower your weapons." They could not argue. Their throats felt tight. Their hearts hammered in their ears. His mind raced anyway. If this is an ambush, I must gather information. If there are unknown powers, I must not show everything at once. He turned his head, slowly scanning. Cameras in corners. A thick cable line. A metal console. A mirror window on one wall. He lifted a finger toward the mirror. The glass frosted. A crack spread across it, not from impact, but from cold. Behind the mirror, someone screamed. Far above the city, on a tower of glass and steel, executives saw two video feeds at once. One was a street full of screaming people filming a blue-haired soup, stopping a crash with invisible barriers. The other was a secure facility, where a skeleton in robes stood in the middle of a firing squad, like it was nothing. On the big screen, Ashley Barrett's mouth fell open. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay. Okay. Okay. That is not—" A man in a suit with calm eyes did not move much. He just watched. "These are not ours," he said. Someone else leaned forward, eyes sharp with hunger. "Then we make them ours," she said. Down in a basement hideout that smelled like old coffee and gun oil, Billy Butcher stared at a phone video of the blue-haired boy. "He's not on the list," Huey said, voice high. Butcher didn't blink. "No, he's not." Mother's Milk frowned. "Those barriers. That's not standard V stuff." Frenchie was already talking fast. "It is like magic. Like a fairy tale. Like trouble," Butcher cut in. On another screen, a shaky clip showed the skeleton. Bullets bouncing. Men dropping. That cold pressure. Huey swallowed. "That one looks like a final boss." Butcher's smile was thin. "Then we don't fight fair, do we?" Back on the street, the blue-haired boy looked up at the sky tear that was closing. It shrank like an eyelid. He felt something else, too. A faint pull, like a string tied to his chest, tugging toward a direction he could not see. His calm face turned serious. Somewhere else, in a locked room, the skeleton felt the same tug. Both of them, in different parts of the city, turned their heads at the same time, toward each other, without knowing why. And in between them, reality made a quiet, nervous sound, like a warning no one had words for yet. The boys did not have a watchtower. They had a cramped room, stolen laptops, a whiteboard, and enough paranoia to fill a stadium. But when the world changed, you used what you had. Huey sat at the laptop, clicking through videos. 100 angles of the same moment. The blue-haired boy on the bus, the invisible wall, the rescue. "And this is live," Huey said. "Like, people are streaming it." Leaned in. "Zoom." Huey zoomed. The boy's eyes were steady. His hands were relaxed. He wasn't trying to show off. He wasn't even looking at the cameras. "He's not acting like a soup," said. "Soups act like they own the air," Starlight said quietly. She was there, hood up, face tired. She had seen too many hero saves that were staged. She had been part of them. But this didn't feel staged. Butcher tossed a file onto the table. "Vaught's already moving. Police are being rerouted. Their people are on the scene." Frenchie tapped his temple. "And our skeleton friend. That is in a Vought facility. I would bet my left hand." Kimiko watched the clip of bullets bouncing off bone. Her eyes narrowed. Not fear. Calculation. Huey tried to make a joke and failed. "So, we have a nice blue guy and a murder wizard." Butcher's eyes stayed on the screen. "Don't call anyone nice yet." He pointed at the blue-haired boy. "He stops a crash. That's easy for any decent soup. But that barrier? That's not Vought tech. And he moved like he'd done it 1,000 times." Starlight stared at the boy. She felt a strange thing in her chest. Not hope exactly, but something close. "He looked at that woman like she mattered," she said. Butcher snorted. "Great. A saint. Saints die here." Huey swallowed. "Or they change things." Butcher turned his head slowly toward Huey. "Change things how? Make Vought feel bad? Make Homelander take a nap? That's not how this works, mate." On another screen, the skeleton's footage froze on a frame where the air looked wrong, like heat shimmer, but cold. Rubbed his forehead. "We don't even know what we're dealing with." Butcher leaned back. "We learn." He turned to Starlight. "You're our inside the world of capes expert. How fast does Vought try to own a new face?" Starlight didn't hesitate. "Immediately. They'll send a team with smiles and contracts. They'll offer safety, money, fame. If that doesn't work, they'll threaten. If that doesn't work..." She looked down. "They'll try to break them." Huey frowned. "You can't just break that skeleton guy. Bullets don't even..." Butcher's grin was ugly. Everything breaks. You just need the right lever. Starlight's eyes flashed. Not everything. Butcher shrugged, like it didn't matter. Above them, on the giant screens of Vought Tower, a plan was already being spoken aloud. In a sleek conference room, Ashley paced so fast her heels clicked like a clock. We can't just, he's on camera. People are calling him Blue Angel already. Someone made fan art. Fan art. A calm man in a suit rested his hands on the table. Names form quickly. We choose the name. A woman with politician eyes tapped a pen. We also choose the fear. Ashley looked like she might explode. He saved people. He didn't hurt anyone. We could make him. A product, the calm man finished. Ashley nodded too hard. Yes, a product, a new face, a new story. A new... And the skeleton? The woman asked. Ashley's mouth opened. Closed. We do not put that on cereal boxes. The calm man's eyes did not change. We decide whether he is a threat to eliminate or a force to redirect. Someone slid a folder across the table. We have no record, no DNA match, no history. The woman's smile was small. Then we write one. On the street, Vought's welcome team arrived. They wore clean jackets, bright smiles, and tiny earpieces. Behind them, security vans rolled up with black windows. The blue-haired boy stood near the bus, looking at the injured in the broken glass. He had helped the ambulance crews without being asked. He had lifted a piece of metal like it weighed nothing. He had made another clear barrier so paramedics could work without being shoved by a crowd. He noticed the welcome team right away. He noticed how their eyes did not look at the injured. They looked at him. A woman stepped forward with perfect hair and a practiced smile. "Hi," she said loudly for the cameras. "I'm from Vought International. We are so happy you're here. You're safe now." He blinked. Safe? She laughed lightly. "Yes, this city can be dangerous. But you don't have to do this alone. We can support you, train you, give you a home, a team." He looked around. Cameras, microphones, faces hungry for a story. He smiled politely. "That's kind, but I'm not sure what Vought is." The woman's smile twitched, then recovered. "We're the company that protects the world. We manage soups, heroes like you." "I see," he said. He did not sound impressed. "So you help people?" "Exactly," she said, too fast. A man stepped up and held out a tablet. "We just need a few signatures for liability. Standard stuff." He glanced at the tablet. His eyes narrowed a little. There were pages of words, ownership words, control words, words that turned a person into a thing. Inside his mind, a calm voice spoke, not aloud, clear as thought. Analysis. The contract assigns all actions, image rights, and service obligations to the company. It includes clauses for forced relocation and behavioral compliance. The blue-haired boy's smile stayed gentle, but his eyes sharpened. "I don't sign things I don't agree with," he said. The man's smile tightened. "It's just paperwork. I come from a place where agreements matter," the boy said. The woman's eyes flicked to the security vans. "We can talk about it somewhere more private." The boy looked at the injured again. "I'd rather stay here until everyone is safe." The woman's smile became harder. "You're drawing attention. Attention can become misunderstandings." He tilted his head. "Are you threatening me?" The woman laughed like she had been asked a funny question. "No, of course not. We're offering help." He turned toward the crowd, then toward the Vought people again. "I will help people because it's right," he said, "not because I'm hired." A few in the crowd cheered. Ashley, watching from a feed, screamed into a phone. "Stop cheering! Who are these people? Why are they cheering?" In the shadows of another part of the city, the skeleton watched a different kind of screen. He stood in a dark room now, not the facility. He had moved without leaving a trail. Cameras had gone black when he passed. Locks had opened, like they forgot how to stay closed. He observed the world with careful patience. He listened to radio chatter. He read files with a spell that pulled meaning from ink. He watched a news clip of the blue-haired boy. His mind tightened. That power is not from this world either. A flicker of relief hit him first. He was not alone. Then the relief turned into caution. If another outsider is here, then the cause may be larger, or planned. Ainz Ooal, Sorcerer King, did not like unknown plans. He raised a hand and called something small into existence. A shadowy figure, low and quiet, slid across the floor like a spilled ink. It moved into a vent. "Gather information," he murmured. He paused, then added, like a man remembering how to be a leader, and returned safely. He stood still, then remembered he was supposed to look confident, regal, certain. He straightened his shoulders and spoke aloud, though no one was there to hear. "This world will be understood, and then it will be controlled." Inside, a human thought whispered. Or, "I will pretend I control it while trying not to die." Back at the boys' hideout, Starlight pulled up her hood tighter. "We should go to the blue one," she said. Butcher shook his head. "We watch first." "He's not hurting anyone," Huey argued. "He's literally saving people." Butcher leaned in close to Huey. "And if he decides he doesn't like us? What then?" Stepped between them. "We don't start a fight. We gather facts. We make contact like adults." Frenchie grinned. "We are adults?" Kimiko made a small sound that might have been a laugh. Butcher finally nodded. "Fine, we make contact, but we do it our way." Starlight looked at Butcher. "Your way gets people killed." Butcher's eyes were flat. "Your way gets people owned." They moved that night. Not with capes, not with cameras. Quiet. Starlight approached first, because she could talk like a hero without sounding like a liar. The blue-haired boy was still near the crash site. The street had been cleared, but he stayed anyway, helping workers lift debris, fixing broken pipes with some strange, clean technique that looked like the air itself obeyed him. Starlight stepped into the light. "Hey," she said, "I'm Annie." He turned and looked at her face. His eyes softened, like he could see the tired behind her smile. "Hello?" he said. "Are you injured?" She blinked. "No, I'm fine." He nodded. "That's good." Starlight cleared her throat. "People are going to come after you, not because you did something wrong, because you're new." He considered that. "I guessed." He glanced at a Vought drone hovering above. He didn't swat it. He just stared at it until it backed away like a nervous bug. Starlight's stomach twisted. That drone backed off from almost nothing. It didn't back off now. "You're not from here," she said. "No," he answered easily. "I was traveling. Then I wasn't." Starlight hesitated. "What's your name?" He paused, like the question mattered. "I am Rimuru Tempest," he said. The name meant nothing to Starlight. Yet. But the way he said it, calm, like he wasn't trying to impress anyone, made it feel important. "I'm not here to cause trouble," Rimuru added, "but trouble seems common here." Starlight let out a short breath. "Yeah." From behind a wall, Butcher watched. Huey watched too, eyes wide. "He's polite," Huey whispered. "Everything's polite until it's not," Butcher said. Across the city, deep under a building no one cared about, Ainz made his own choice. He would not let this world find him on their terms. He would choose when to be seen. He would choose where. He would choose the first story told about him. The next morning, Vought held a press event. They did not ask Rimuru to come. They announced him anyway. A smiling anchor said, "A new hero has arrived, and Vought is proud to support." The feed cut out for 1 second. On every screen, in every office lobby, in every bar, the image flickered. For a single moment, a skull with red eyes filled the screen. A voice spoke, calm and deep. "I am Ainz Ooal." The broadcast returned to the anchor, who was suddenly sweating. Ainz's face vanished like it had never been there. But the city had seen him. And in Vought Tower, Ashley screamed so loud her throat cracked. "That's not approved!" she yelled. The calm man in the suit stood and adjusted his cuffs. "Now it is." In their hideout, Butcher stared at the frozen frame. Huey paused. "Ainz Ooal," Huey read slowly. "That sounds like a gamer tag." Butcher's smile returned, thin and sharp. "It sounds like a man who wants to be in charge," he said. Outside on a rooftop, Rimuru felt that invisible pull again. Stronger now, like a rope tightening. He looked toward the direction of Vought Tower. He didn't know why, but he knew one thing. Something was moving. And if this world was going to stay alive, someone had to stop it from turning into a show. The first real hero moment Vought tried to create was scheduled like a concert. They called it a community event, a hope day, free music, free merch, smiling soups shaking hands, cameras everywhere. It was built for one thing, a perfect clip, a new hero standing beside Vought's biggest hero, a handshake, a grin, a promise. Rimuru did not go. He stayed in neighborhoods Vought didn't film much, places with broken streetlights and tired faces. He listened to people. He helped quietly. That made Vought angry. So Vought created a reason. On the morning of Hope Day, Starlight stood backstage and watched the crowd through a gap in the curtain. Thousands of people, families, kids with toy capes, signs that said, "We love you, Homelander." Homelander smiled for cameras like he was born doing it. He was. But his eyes were hard. He had heard the name Rimuru Tempest on the news. He had seen the clips. A new face stealing attention. He didn't like it. Ashley rushed up with a clipboard shaking in her hands. "Okay, Homelander, we have a small adjustment." Homelander didn't look at her. "Speak." Ashley swallowed. "We're going to have a surprise incident." Homelander's eyes moved at last. "What kind of incident?" Ashley tried to smile. It came out like pain. A controlled one. Homelander leaned closer, and Ashley flinched without meaning to. "Controlled," Homelander repeated. "By who?" Ashley pointed, shaky, toward a section of the plaza where a maintenance crew moved around a utility truck. By us. It'll be safe. It's just to encourage the new guy to show up." Homelander's smile widened. "Oh," he said, "we're baiting him." Ashley nodded fast. "Yes, exactly. And then you look like the leader who welcomes him. The public sees you as strong and generous." Homelander grabbed her clipboard with one hand and crushed it like paper. He let the pieces fall. "I am the leader," he said softly. Ashley's eyes filled with tears. Yes, of course." He walked away. Ashley leaned on a wall, breathing like she had run miles. Under the plaza, below the stage, in a service tunnel, men in Vought security gear stood around a metal case. Inside the case was not a bomb. Not exactly. It was a device built from stolen lab parts, and new parts no one had tested enough. It hummed with a weak, strange pulse, like a heartbeat made of electricity. A scientist checked a tablet. "This will trigger the release," he said. A guard frowned. "Release of what?" The scientist hesitated. "The compound destabilizer. It should make the subject react." "Subject?" the guard asked. The scientist glanced away. "Don't ask." The guard did not like it, but he also liked his paycheck. He turned his head and pretended he hadn't heard. Across the city, the boys watched the live stream. Huey squinted at the screen. "Why are there so many cameras?" Butcher snorted. "Because it's Vought. Cameras are their religion." MM's jaw tightened. "Starlight, you sure this isn't going to be a massacre?" Starlight watched from her own phone. She was not at the event. Not this time. "I'm sure it's going to be a lie," she said, "and lies get people hurt." Frenchie leaned forward. "Where is our blue friend?" "Rimuru." Starlight didn't answer at first. Then she said, "He's not coming. He told me he doesn't want to be in their show." Butcher's eyes narrowed. Smart. Or stupid. Depends what happens next. Huey's phone buzzed. A new video. A street-level stream from someone near the plaza. The camera shook. The crowd roared as Homelander stepped onto the stage. Homelander raised his arms. The cheers were loud enough to distort the microphone. He spoke like a king. "My beautiful people," he said, "I'm here because I love you." Butcher rolled his eyes. "He loves himself." Homelander continued. "And I heard there's been some confusion." He smiled toward the cameras. "Some newcomer. Someone who thinks they can just show up and play hero." The crowd murmured. Homelander spread his hands. "So, I want to say this clearly. If you're watching, friend, come meet me. Join the Seven. Be part of something real." Behind the stage, Ashley whispered into an earpiece. "Now. Now. Trigger it." Under the plaza, the scientist pressed a button. The device pulsed. A weak sound echoed through the tunnel, like a distant cough. Then something answered it. On the edge of the plaza, near a crowd barrier, a man in a hoodie jerked like he'd been stabbed. He grabbed his chest. His eyes bulged. People around him stepped back. "Sir," someone asked. The man opened his mouth to scream, but instead he vomited a thick black fluid onto the ground. The crowd gasped. His skin bubbled, like heat under plastic. His arms grew too long. His fingers split. Bones cracked and reshaped under flesh. A woman screamed and dropped her kid's hand. The kid cried. The man, no, the thing, lifted its head and roared. The sound was not human. It charged into the crowd. People ran. Strollers toppled. A security guard tried to shoot it, but the bullets barely slowed it. Homelander stopped mid-speech, face twisting. He looked annoyed more than shocked, like someone had spilled a drink on his shoes. He floated up a few feet, eyes glowing. "Really?" he said into the mic. "This is the plan?" The creature slammed into a barricade and threw it like a toy. People screamed louder. Homelander shot heat vision. The beams hit the creature's shoulder. Flesh burned. The thing stumbled, but it did not fall. It roared again, and the roar made another person in the crowd collapse. Then another, not from fear, from something inside them responding, like a signal. The camera caught it. People grabbing their throats, eyes rolling, bodies twitching. Starlight's blood went cold. "That's not one," she whispered. "That's spreading." Swore under his breath. "This is a chemical trigger." Frenchie's eyes went wide. "It is like a plague that wakes up sleeping monsters." Huey stared at the screen, shaking. "How do we stop that?" Butcher grabbed his coat. "We don't watch. We move." At the same time, across town, Rimuru felt the pull tighten into a sharp tug. He was standing in an alley, talking to a tired man who had lost his brother to a soup accident. Rimuru had listened without interrupting once. Then his head snapped up. He heard it, not with ears, but with something deeper. Too many heartbeats, too many sudden changes, fear and pain rolling outward like a wave. He looked toward the plaza. "I'm sorry," he told the man softly. "I need to go." He stepped forward. Space bent. To a normal person, it looked like he vanished. To Rimuru, it felt like moving through a familiar door. He appeared on a rooftop near the plaza. The air was loud with screams. Rimuru looked down and saw the crowd breaking apart. He saw people falling. He saw a creature tearing through bodies. He also saw Homelander floating above the stage, looking angry that his day had been ruined. Rimuru's face hardened. "No," he said quietly. He jumped. He fell fast, then slowed again right above the crowd. He landed in the middle of chaos, between the creature and a group of people trapped against a wall. A clear dome appeared around the trapped group. The creature slammed into it and bounced back like it had hit a steel wall. People inside the dome stared at Rimuru like he was an angel or a monster. Rimuru turned his head. He scanned the crowd. Raphael's voice in his mind stayed calm. Multiple targets. Reaction is spreading through altered biology. Source appears external. Rimuru raised his hand. Thin threads of light shot out, like invisible strings snapping into place. They wrapped around people who were collapsing and stabilized their bodies. They stopped the worst changes from continuing, at least for now. He didn't heal everyone instantly. Not because he couldn't, because he needed to understand what was happening to stop it. Safely. Rimuru looked at the creature. He stepped closer. The creature swung an arm the size of a log. Rimuru caught it. The ground cracked under his feet, but he did not move. The creature stared at him, confused. Then it roared and swung harder. Rimuru twisted the arm gently and pinned the creature to the ground with a smooth motion, like holding down an angry dog without hurting it. "I don't want to kill you," Rimuru said. "You're in pain." The creature snapped at him. Rimuru sighed. "Okay, then I'll restrain you." A ring of clear walls formed around the creature, locking it in place. It struggled, but it couldn't break free. People around them stopped running for half a second. Cameras turned. Someone shouted, "It's him! It's the new guy!" Homelander hovered higher, watching. His eyes narrowed. Rimuru looked up at him. Just a glance. There was no fear in Rimuru's eyes. Just focus. Homelander's smile returned, sharp. "Well," Homelander called, loud enough for the cameras. "There you are." Rimuru didn't answer. He turned back to the crowd and expanded his barrier domes, creating safe lanes for people to escape. Homelander's jaw tightened. He flew down, landing hard on the stage, cracking wood. "You're stealing my moment," he said. Rimuru finally spoke to him, calm, direct. "People are dying," Rimuru said. "Your moment can wait." Homelander's eyes lit up brighter. "You don't tell me what can wait." Behind Rimuru, another person in the crowd convulsed. Their skin began to change. Then another. Then a whole cluster. Rimuru's attention snapped away. He threw more stabilizing threads. And that's when the ground under the plaza shook. A service door blew open. A second creature climbed out, bigger, heavier, with plates of hard skin like armor. It had been kept underground. The controlled incident had become a release. The armor creature roared and charged straight toward the densest part of the crowd. Rimuru moved, but he couldn't be in two places at once unless he chose to split. He did choose. His body blurred, and two Rimurus now moved, one toward the armor creature, one still stabilizing the collapsing people. Homelander watched, and something ugly flickered across his face. He hated seeing someone else look competent. He fired heat vision at the armor creature again, trying to make it look like he was saving the day. The beam carved a burning line. The creature stumbled but kept going. Homelander cursed under his breath. He wasn't used to anything ignoring him. Rimuru's second body reached the creature first. He made a huge barrier wall across the plaza, forcing it to slam into it. The impact sounded like a car crash. The wall held. Rimuru grabbed the creature's head with both hands and pushed it down, gently but firmly, forcing it onto its knees. A third scream rose in the crowd, not from the people, from the air itself. A pressure spread, like the city had suddenly stepped into a freezer. The livestream camera shook. The image glitched. Then, on the edge of the plaza, a tall figure appeared, not walking in, just there. A skeleton in black robes, jewels shining, red eyes burning. People who saw him froze. Some screamed and ran. Others couldn't move at all, like their bodies forgot how. The skeleton lifted one hand. Everything slowed. Not time for the whole world, just the chaotic motion in his range. Dust hung in the air longer. People's stumbling steps became heavy. His voice carried clearly without a microphone. Enough. Rimuru turned, eyes widening slightly. This presence, it was not like Homelander. Not loud, not emotional. It was controlled, heavy, ancient. Homelander stared at the skeleton, confused for one rare second. "What the hell is that?" he muttered. Too quiet for the crowd, but not for Rimuru. The skeleton's red eyes shifted to Homelander, then to Rimuru. Inside the skeleton, the human thought ran fast. So this is the other outsider. He is containing the outbreak without killing. Dangerous, useful. Unclear. The skeleton spoke again, loud enough for cameras and ears. "This chaos is artificial," he said. "Someone started it." Vought's staff backstage went pale. Ashley, watching from a hidden screen, whispered, "No, no, no, no." Homelander recovered his smile, but it looked forced. "Hey, Bone Man? This is my city." The skeleton did not react like someone being threatened. He reacted like someone hearing a barking dog. "I did not ask," he said. Homelander's eyes burned brighter. "You don't talk to me like that." He launched himself forward. He was fast, faster than bullets, faster than most humans could track. He aimed to slam into the skeleton and rip him apart. The skeleton did not move. Homelander hit an invisible wall and stopped dead, like he'd flown into solid glass. His face twisted in surprise. He hit the wall again. Harder. Nothing. The skeleton tilted his skull slightly. "A barrier," he said, as if explaining a simple lesson. How familiar. Rimuru's eyes flicked. He recognized the structure. Not the same as his own, but similar in purpose. Rimuru's voice stayed calm. "Stop," he told Homelander. "You're wasting time." Homelander turned his head slowly toward Rimuru. Rage bubbled up like boiling water. "Who are you?" Homelander hissed. "To tell me anything." Rimuru didn't flinch. Someone trying to keep people alive. Homelander's lips pulled back. "Then try harder." He turned his heat vision toward the crowd, toward the people still collapsing, toward the cameras. It was not just rage, it was control, a threat. "Do what I want, or I burn what you care about." Rimuru's eyes sharpened. His voice dropped. "Don't," he said. Ainz's red eyes flared. Ainz understood that move immediately. A king's threat. A tyrant's threat. He lifted his hand. A dark circle formed under Homelander's feet on the stage. Homelander felt his body tighten, like invisible hands had grabbed his limbs. He tried to move and couldn't. "What?" he snarled. Ainz spoke one short word. "Hold." It was not just a spell. It was a command stamped into reality in his range. Homelander strained. Muscles bulged. He fought like a bull pulling against chains. He was strong. But this was not a contest of muscle. This was control over rules. Homelander's heat vision flickered off, not by choice, but because his focus broke when he realized he wasn't in charge. The crowd screamed louder. Cameras zoomed in. Rimuru used the moment. He expanded his stabilizing threads. He made barriers into tunnels, guiding people out like water through channels. He took the collapsing cluster and surrounded them with a soft dome, then ran a full analysis. Raphael's voice stayed steady. "Cause: external pulse interacts with compound 5 changes. Removal of pulse will slow spread. Victims require purification or long-term treatment." Rimuru glanced toward the underground door. He could sense the device. He could sense the pulse, faint but present. He split again. One body stayed, containing and healing. The other moved toward the service tunnels. He didn't smash through walls wildly. He flowed through the path like a key finding a lock. Below, Vought guards saw him and raised rifles. Rimuru didn't even look at the guns. He raised a hand, and their weapons slid out of their hands and clattered to the floor. He looked at them. "Please," he said, "move aside." The guards trembled. Not because he screamed, because his calm made it clear he could do much worse. They moved. Rimuru found the device. It was ugly. A box with wires and a pulsing core, human-made, but pushed by something it didn't understand. He could destroy it. But if he destroyed it wrong, it might burst and spread the signal wider for a moment, like smashing a horn that still echoes. So, Rimuru did it carefully. He wrapped the device in layered barriers, sealing the pulse inside. Then he compressed the barriers tighter and tighter until the humming stopped. Silence. Above ground, several people mid-mutation stopped changing. They still looked sick, still hurt. But the runaway growth paused. Rimuru breathed out once, relieved. Then he felt it. A second pulse, not from the device, from the air. The ripple. It had been nudged, poked, fed. Ainz felt it too. His undead senses caught the shift like a sudden taste of metal in the mouth. This world's laws are thin, Ainz murmured. Homelander finally broke the hold spell through brute will and raw anger. Not because he beat Ainz's magic, but because Ainz had not invested heavy effort in keeping him pinned forever. Ainz had bigger priorities. Homelander shot into the sky, snarling. He did not flee because he was beaten. He fled because he could feel something he hated more than pain. He could feel being irrelevant. He hovered above the plaza, screaming down at the cameras. "This is under control," he shouted. "I am in control." No one believed him now. Not fully. Not after they saw him stop against an invisible wall, like a fly hitting a window. Rimuru returned to the surface, one body dissolving back into him as he rejoined himself. He looked at the victims inside domes and began healing what he safely could. He didn't promise instant miracles. He stabilized, soothed, and repaired what wouldn't break again, seconds later. Huey, Butcher, and MM arrived at the edge of the chaos, staying out of sight. Huey's mouth hung open. He just shut it off, Huey whispered. Butcher watched Ainz, eyes narrowed, and Bone Man just punked Homelander on live TV. MM looked sick. What happens now? Starlight, watching from afar, felt something shift in her chest. Hope tried to rise. Then fear followed it. Because if these two could do this in minutes, what could they do in a day? Ainz stepped forward slowly, robes trailing. People backed away like he carried disease. He spoke, not to them, but to the cameras. "Listen," he said. "I do not belong to your company. I do not follow your laws. But I will not allow experiments like this to spread." He turned his skull toward the hidden Vought staff, watching from behind barricades. "I will find the one who initiated this," he said. His words were simple, but the promise behind them felt sharp. Rimuru stepped beside him, calm in a way that didn't match the screaming city. "I agree," Rimuru said, loud enough for those close by. "Someone did this to people." He looked toward the stage where the torn banners still read, "Hope Day." "This was not hope," Rimuru said. "This was a trap." Ainz's red eyes slid to Rimuru. For a moment, they simply regarded each other. Not friends, not enemies. Two rulers measuring the shape of the room they had been thrown into. Rimuru spoke first, quieter now, meant only for Ainz. "You felt the ripple too," Rimuru said. Ainz did not deny it. "Yes." Rimuru's expression tightened. "Then this will happen again." Ainz's voice stayed level, "unless we stop the cause." Rimuru nodded once. "Then we should not fight each other." Ainz stared at him. He was silent long enough that a human might think he was deciding whether to kill. Then he answered in a way that was almost honest. "Cooperation," Ainz said, "may be efficient." Rimuru accepted that like it was the best Ainz could offer right now. Cameras caught everything. VOD editors would try to cut it, twist it, control it. But the raw live streams were already everywhere. People saw a new truth today. Homelander could be stopped. And two outsiders, one calm like a gentle ruler, one cold like a dark king, had walked into the boy's world and treated it like a problem to solve, not a stage to sell. That night in Vought Tower, the calm man in the suit watched the numbers rise. Views, shares, panic, fascination. Ashley sat on the floor, shaking. "We're dead," she whispered. "We're so dead." The woman with politician eyes didn't look worried. She looked thoughtful. "They aren't ours," she said, "but they can still be used." Outside, on a rooftop, Butcher lit a cigarette with hands that didn't shake, because he refused to let fear show. He exhaled slowly. "Two gods," he said, and Vought just poked them with a stick. Huey stared at the city lights. Maybe this is good. Butcher's eyes stayed on the horizon where the skyline cut into the sky. "Or maybe," Butcher said, "it's the worst thing that ever happened." In the same city, Rimuru stood alone for a moment, watching ambulances and hearing the weak cries settle into tired silence. He felt sick at what had been done. Ainz stood in a darker place, watching from a distance, mind building a map of enemies and leverage. Both of them felt that ripple again. Not a tug this time, a widening, like a crack that had been forced open and now did not want to close. And somewhere, deep in the systems Vought thought it controlled, a new file was created. Two names were typed into it, not as people, but as categories. Asset, threat. And in the empty space beneath those words, someone began writing the next plan. 3 days after Hope Day, the city still sounded different. It was not just sirens. It was the way people talked now. Every conversation had the same shape. "Did you see it? Did you see him stop? Did you see him freeze, Homelander?" On a morning show, the host smiled too hard. "New heroes," she said, bright and shaky. "New hope." A graphic flashed on the screen with two silhouettes. One was a smooth, blue shape with big, friendly eyes. The other was a skull with a crown of light. Beneath them, Vought had already placed labels. The Mystery Savior, the Death King. In a quiet apartment with cheap blinds, a man who had lost his wife to a soup accident threw his remote at the TV. "Stop calling them heroes," he spat. "Stop selling them. Stop." His teenage daughter stared at her phone. "Dad, that blue one, he saved people. He wasn't posing." The man's shoulders sagged. So did Starlight. Look how that went. Across town, inside a glass building that looked like it had never seen dust, Vought's top floor was calm on the surface and boiling underneath. Ashley Barrett sat at a long table with a stack of papers so high it looked like a school project gone wrong. Her hair was pulled tight. Her eyes were red. "I don't understand," she whispered. "I don't understand how we are losing the story." A calm man in a suit did not raise his voice. "We are not losing the story," he said. "We are learning the story is bigger than our usual tools." A woman with politician eyes flipped through a folder. The blue one responds to civilians. He avoids brand behavior. That makes him dangerous. Ashley blinked. Dangerous because he's good? The woman looked at her like Ashley was a child. Dangerous because he makes our heroes look fake, she said. On a wall screen, a clip played. Rimuru forming safe tunnels for people, his face focused, not smiling for cameras. Then the clip cut to Homelander screaming that he was in control. No one laughed in the room, but the silence carried the same message. Homelander had been embarrassed, and Homelander never forgave embarrassment. The woman tapped the folder, and the skeleton. He announced himself. He didn't ask permission. He broke into our broadcast like it was a toy. Ashley shivered. He scares people. That can be useful, the calm man said. Ashley swallowed. So, what's the plan? The calm man steepled his fingers. We stopped trying to put them in a box with a logo. He nodded at the pile of papers. We use what works everywhere. Fear, incentives, rules. Ashley stared. Rules? The calm man's mouth did not smile, but his eyes sharpened. Paperwork, he said simply. Titles, permissions, jurisdictions. We will not defeat them with strength. We will slow them with structure. Ashley looked down at the contracts and realized Vought was about to do what it always did. If you can't kill the problem, you classify it. If you can't classify it, you make people afraid of it. In an alley 2 neighborhoods away, Rimuru Tempest watched a mother argue with a landlord. The landlord stood in a doorway with crossed arms. The mother held a sleeping child and a bag of clothes. "You're late again," the landlord said. "Out." "I told you," the mother pleaded. "The hospital. My son." Rimuru didn't step in like a bully. He stepped in like a mediator. "Hello?" Rimuru said gently. "Can we talk?" The landlord turned. He opened his mouth to yell, then froze. He recognized the face from the news. His tone changed instantly, not to respect, but to fear. "I don't want trouble," the landlord said. Rimuru kept his voice calm. "I don't want trouble either. I want a fair solution." The landlord's eyes flicked to Rimuru's hands like he expected a lightning bolt. "Are you Vought?" the landlord asked. Rimuru blinked. "No." The landlord frowned. "Then who are you?" Rimuru hesitated, then answered honestly. "I'm Rimuru." "That's not an answer," the landlord said, trying to sound tough. Rimuru looked at the mother, then back at the landlord. "It's the only one I have right now," he said. He helped them reach a simple agreement, a small delay, a payment plan, a safe place for the child to rest. It was normal life stuff. It should not have needed a god-tier being to make it happen. That fact sat heavy in Rimuru's chest. As the mother walked away, she looked back at him. "Thank you," she said softly. Then she lowered her voice. "Are they going to come for you?" Rimuru's smile was polite, but it didn't hide the truth. "Maybe," he said. Inside his mind, Raphael's voice was calm as always. Observation: this world uses power as a product. Social trust is low. Systems are unstable. Rimuru looked up at a Vought billboard that showed a smiling hero holding a soda. He didn't hate the billboard. He hated what it meant. A few blocks away, in a place where the lights were dim and the air smelled like old stone, Ainz Ooal gown stood perfectly still. He had chosen an abandoned underground space beneath a building no one cared about. It had multiple exits, thick walls, old pipes, no cameras that hadn't already been turned off. Albedo stood nearby, hands folded, eyes shining with loyalty that bordered on dangerous. "Shaltiar and Demiurge have completed the perimeter sweep," she said. "No threats detected." Ainz nodded slowly, acting calm. Inside, his mind ran through possibilities like a storm. "No threats detected means nothing. This world has weapons I do not understand. If they can alter humans with that drug, can they alter me? Can they affect Nazarick?" He spoke in a voice that sounded confident. "Good," he said. "Implement Phase 1 security protocol." Albedo's smile was sharp. "As you command." Ainz watched his guardians move. They were too strong for this world, likely. But strength was not the only risk. This world was messy, loud, full of lies. That kind of world could pull you into mistakes without you noticing. Ainz lifted a hand and summoned a small floating orb. It was an information tool, a watcher. He whispered a spell, and the orb's surface filled with shifting images pulled from public broadcasts. Rimuru, Homelander, crowds, Vought. Ainz stared at Rimuru's face for a long time. He does not behave like a conqueror, Ainz thought. He behaves like a ruler who wants peace. That could be a problem. Peace makes people follow you willingly. And then Ainz realized something else and did not like it. If this world becomes stable under him, Nazarick might look like the villain by comparison. Ainz did not enjoy being the villain. He simply accepted it when needed. Ainz murmured, mostly to himself, "We must control our image." Demiurge appeared in a blur, bowing. His smile looked polite. His eyes looked like a trap. "My lord," Demiurge said, "may I suggest we do not allow this world to label you first?" Ainz's skull tilted. "Explain." "They will attempt to place you into categories," Demiurge said smoothly. "If you refuse, they will label you as a monster. If you accept, they will attempt to bind you. In either case, they gain the first move." Ainz knew this. Still, hearing it said clearly steadied him. "And Rimuru Tempest?" Ainz asked. Demiurge's smile widened slightly. "He will be offered a crown made of smiles. If he accepts, he becomes their symbol. If he refuses, they will make him the threat." Ainz's red eyes dimmed and brightened, like slow fire. "So they want to divide us," Ainz said. "Yes," Demiurge replied, "because together, you represent an uncontrollable variable." Ainz hated the word variable. He also hated that Demiurge was probably right. On a rooftop at sunset, Starlight stood with Huey and looked down at the city. She had been avoiding cameras, avoiding public, avoiding the feeling that everyone expected her to fix something she hadn't broken. Huey held 2 coffees. He offered one. Starlight took it without smiling. "Thanks." They watched a helicopter pass, Vought logo on the side. Huey's voice was quiet. "Do you think they're good?" Starlight looked at him. "I think one of them tries to be. I think the other one is careful." Huey frowned. "Careful sounds good." "It can be," Starlight said. "It can also be scary." Huey took a sip. But Homelander, he looked small. Starlight didn't correct him, even though it felt strange to agree. "He was stopped," she said, "and I've never seen that happen in public before." Huey's eyes flicked to her. "Does that make you feel better?" Starlight hesitated. Then she admitted the truth. "It makes me feel hope," she said, "and that scares me." Huey's face softened. "Why?" Starlight watched a group of kids on a street below, pointing up at a Rimuru Saved Us graffiti someone had already painted. "Because hope makes you relax," she said, "and in this world, relaxing gets people hurt." She looked down at her hands, and because if someone that powerful decides to stop caring, no one can stop them. Huey followed her gaze. "But you just said the blue one cares." "Right now," Starlight said. Huey's mouth tightened. "What about the skeleton one?" Starlight's shoulders stiffened. "He doesn't look like someone who cares about strangers." Huey didn't argue. He couldn't. In their hideout, Butcher listened to all this through an earpiece, jaw tight. He clicked it off and looked at MM. "See?" Butcher said. "Everyone's already choosing teams in their heads." MM crossed his arms. "We're not choosing teams. We're trying to survive." Butcher leaned forward. "We survive by not trusting gods." Frenchie waved a hand. "Butcher, sometimes the gods can be useful." Butcher's eyes snapped to him. "Useful until they decide you're in the way." Kimiko watched silently. She had lived through monsters wearing human faces. She did not fall for smiles. MM tapped the table. "We need facts. Who started that outbreak? Who built the device?" Butcher's smile returned, thin as a blade. "Vought." Huey's voice came through another speaker, shaky. "Okay, but prove it." Butcher nodded once. "We will." At that exact moment, a message came through a burner phone. It was a location, and a single sentence. "Come if you want answers, alone." Butcher stared at it. Then he laughed, short and mean. "They want to lure me," he said. MM grabbed his arm. "Don't go." Butcher's eyes stayed hard. "I'm going." Starlight's voice cut in over the call line. "If you go, you'll die." Butcher shrugged. "Then I'll die doing something useful." Huey's voice cracked. "Butcher!" Butcher snapped. "Enough!" He shoved the phone in his pocket and started walking. He didn't notice the small dark shape that slid across the ceiling above him, following like a shadow that had learned to listen. Ainz's spy was already there, not to protect Butcher, to learn. Later that night, Butcher stood in a parking garage with peeling paint and a broken elevator. He waited near a pillar, hand near a hidden weapon. A door creaked. Footsteps. A man stepped out in a suit. Not a guard. Not a thug. A politician face. Calm eyes. A smile that did not reach the skin. "You're Billy Butcher," the man said. Butcher's grin was sharp. "And you're lost." The man didn't react. "I'm here because we share a problem." Butcher's eyes narrowed. "Vought is my problem. You're Vought." The man's expression remained mild. "Vought is a system. Systems can be reshaped." Butcher laughed. "You want to reshape it by offering me a deal?" "I want to offer you leverage," the man replied. He held out a folder. Inside were pictures, lab photos, underground rooms, a device like the one from Hope Day, but larger. Butcher's smile faded. "Where's that?" The man tilted his head. "You tell me." Butcher didn't touch the folder. "Why bring it to me?" The man's eyes sharpened just a bit. "Because you are predictable. You hate soups. You hate lies. You will chase this." "But you don't want to chase it?" Butcher asked. The man's voice stayed calm. "I want to know what the outsiders are, what they want, and whether they can be aimed." Butcher's stomach turned. There it is. The truth. They don't want to stop the danger. They want to own it. Butcher leaned forward. "Here's my answer. Get out of my way." The man smiled faintly. "You will need allies, Mr. Butcher. Even you cannot fight two gods and Vought at the same time." Butcher's eyes were flat. "Watch me." He turned and walked away, leaving the folder untouched. As he left, a chill brushed the air for half a second. He didn't notice. The shadow on the ceiling did. And somewhere underground, Ainz listened through magic. He did not like this world's schemers. But he respected them. They fought with words the way others fought with knives. Back in his temporary base, Ainz sat in silence. Albedo stepped closer. "My lord, what do we do?" Ainz stared at the moving images of Vought meetings. He spoke in a low voice. "We do what rulers do," he said. "We build rules. We build defenses. And we remove the hands that pull the strings." His red eyes dimmed. "And we do not let this world decide who we are." Above ground, Rimuru walked through a small community center where injured people sat on folding chairs. Some had been hurt in the Hope Day panic. Some had older injuries that no one had treated well because they were poor. A volunteer tried to hand Rimuru a clipboard. You need to sign in," she said, voice trembling. Rimuru stared at it. His expression became oddly tired. "Again," he whispered. The volunteer looked confused. "It's just the rules." Rimuru exhaled slowly. He took the clipboard. He wrote, "Rimuru Tempest" in clean letters. Then he paused at the next line. Role title. He stared at it for a long time. Because in his world, titles mattered, but they were earned through trust, not printed on cheap paper. He wrote after a moment, "Helper," and he walked inside. That night, the ripple moved again. Not in the sky. In labs, in blood, in stories told in whispers. The world did not understand it, but it was learning, and it was hungry. 2 weeks passed. The panic changed shape. At first it was loud. It was people screaming on social media, posting shaky clips, arguing in comment sections. Then it became quieter. Quieter meant plans were forming. Rimuru made his own plan. He didn't want to fight Vought like a warlord. He wanted to reduce harm like a leader. He started with something simple. A list. Names of victims. Names of families. Names of missing people. places where Vought's mess had been buried. He didn't buy anything. He didn't build a store. He didn't start a brand. He built a system. He met with nurses and social workers. He listened. He asked what they needed: safe transport, private shelter, medical care without cameras. Most of all, rules that people could trust. So he drafted an agreement. It wasn't magical paper. It wasn't a spell scroll. It was just a clear set of promises. No forced testing. No selling victims. No hero content filmed in hospitals. If someone had unstable compound 5 changes, they would be treated like a person, not a weapon. Rimuru knew he could enforce these rules with power, but he wanted people to enforce them with belief. That was the hard part. One afternoon, he sat at a table in a church basement with 3 local leaders and a lawyer who looked like she hadn't slept in years. The lawyer pushed her glasses up. "This isn't how the city works," she said. Rimuru nodded. "Then the city is broken." The lawyer sighed. "You can't just write rules and expect Vought to follow them." Rimuru leaned forward. His voice stayed gentle. "I'm not asking Vought to follow them," he said. "I'm asking you to help me build something they can't easily destroy." The lawyer stared at him. "Why?" Rimuru's eyes softened. "Because people deserve a safe life." Across the city, Ainz made a plan too. It was not about kindness. It was about security. He had summoned more information tools, more watchers. He sent undead scouts into sewers, abandoned tunnels, and service corridors. He mapped Vought like a fortress. He learned their patrol patterns. He learned their black sites. And he chose something that fit him perfectly. A permanent base, not for comfort, for control. Ainz and Nazarick could not drift. Drift led to mistakes. So Ainz sought a location with structure, deep underground, stable, hidden, and defensible. Demiurge provided options. He always did. "There is a sealed research facility under the river," Demiurge said. "It is unused. It has multiple layers. It would be suitable." Ainz's skull tilted. "Under the river?" "Yes," Demiurge replied. "Also, it would allow us to observe a nearby supply route used by Vought." Ainz paused. "Useful, but also suspiciously perfect." He forced his voice to sound wise. "Proceed carefully," he said. "We will not walk into a trap." Albedo's eyes flashed. "If it is a trap, we will crush it." Ainz did not say what he thought. "If it is a trap, I might not even notice until the trap closes." Ainz rose. "We go tonight. Minimal display. No needless violence." Demiurge smiled. "As you command." That night, Rimuru's agreement work and Ainz's base work collided in a way neither expected, because both of their paths led to the same place. A black site, not listed on any map, not on any official record. A place where people disappeared and returned as accidents. Rimuru learned about it from survivors. A man with shaking hands who had escaped a lab in a delivery truck. "They keep them under the river," the man whispered. "They call it a storage annex." Rimuru's jaw tightened. How many? The man's eyes filled. Too many. Rimuru stood up slowly. His calm stayed, but it became colder around the edges. "I'm going there," he said. The lawyer's face went pale. "That's suicide." Rimuru shook his head. "Not for me." He looked at the people in the basement. "But for them, if we do nothing." Meanwhile, Demiurge guided Ainz through a sewer tunnel with quiet confidence. They reached a sealed door disguised behind rusted pipes. Demiurge placed a hand on the lock. "It is protected," he said, "but not against us." Ainz watched the door's surface shimmer with weak electronic defenses. So this world uses machines for locks, Ainz thought. That is simpler than magic, but it can still be clever. He lifted a finger and spoke a spell. The metal grew cold. The hinges stiffened. The lock mechanisms froze, then cracked. The door opened without a sound. They stepped inside. The facility smelled like disinfectant and fear. Lights flickered. A distant hum vibrated through the floor. Somewhere deeper, a machine pulsed like a heartbeat. Ainz stopped. He felt it. That ripple. Not just a crack in reality, but a pressure point being poked. Demiurge's smile faded. My lord, this is not simply a base. Ainz's red eyes narrowed. No. They moved forward in silence. 2 corridors down, Rimuru stepped into the same facility from another entry point. He didn't break walls. He didn't announce himself. He flowed through security like water slipping through fingers. Guards raised weapons. Rimuru didn't hurt them. He sealed their guns in clear barriers and gently pinned their boots to the floor. Please don't move, he said. I don't want to fight you. The guards stared at him, terrified and embarrassed. Rimuru's eyes stayed focused on the bigger problem. He followed the sound of weak crying. He found a room with glass cells. Inside were people with IV lines and bruises. Some looked normal. Some had strange veins glowing under their skin. Some were asleep. Some stared at nothing. Rimuru's chest tightened. He had led a nation. He had made hard choices. He had seen war. But this was different. This was cruelty, done slowly, behind clean walls. Rimuru placed a hand on the glass. The glass softened like warm wax and opened. A nurse screamed. She stumbled backward, clutching a tablet. Rimuru looked at her. Where is the control room? The nurse shook her head. I can't. Rimuru didn't yell. That made it worse. People are suffering, Rimuru said simply. Tell me, or I will find it myself. The nurse pointed him with a shaking finger. Rimuru nodded once. Thank you. He stepped through and began stabilizing the prisoners the way he had at Hope Day, but with more care now. More time. He muted pain. He slowed dangerous changes. He did not fix everything in one dramatic flash because some bodies had been pushed too far and needed careful repair. He heard a sound behind him. Not footsteps. A heavy silence falling into place. He turned and saw Ainz Ooal gown at the far end of the corridor, robes trailing, red eyes steady. For 1 second, Rimuru didn't move. Then he spoke, calm but alert. You found it too, Rimuru said. Ainz stared back. Yes. Between them, a door burst open, and a large shape charged out. It was not a normal soup. It was a body forced into something new. Armor-like skin, a mouth full of too many teeth, thick veins pulsing with a dark glow. A V-ripple hybrid. It roared and slammed into the floor, shaking the hallway. Rimuru stepped forward to intercept. Ainz lifted one hand. They acted at the same time without planning it. Rimuru formed a barrier funnel to redirect the creature away from the cells. Ainz cast a binding spell that locked the creature's joints mid-lunge. The creature froze in a twisted pose, roaring silently as its throat tightened. Rimuru glanced at Ainz. Good. Ainz's skull tilted. He did not respond to praise the way a normal person would. Instead, he asked, Why are you here? Rimuru's eyes flicked to the cells. To stop this. Ainz's gaze followed. For a brief moment, his red eyes dimmed. He understood cages. He understood experiments. He understood what it meant to be treated as a thing. He did not say it. Instead, he spoke like a king making a judgment. This facility will be seized, Ainz said. Rimuru frowned. Seized by who? Ainz's voice stayed even. By the one who can protect it from being rebuilt. Rimuru's expression tightened. Control is not the same as protection. Ainz's red eyes flared slightly. Protection requires control. Before Rimuru could answer, alarms erupted. Not local alarms. Deep alarms. A mechanical voice echoed through the halls. Containment failure, core pulse rising. Demiurge appeared beside Ainz. His smile returned, thin and pleased, like a man who had just found the heart of a puzzle. "My lord," Demiurge said, "they are forcing the anomaly." Rimuru's stomach dropped. "They're pushing the ripple?" Ainz looked toward the deeper chambers. "Yes." Rimuru turned to the prisoners. He was torn. He could take them out now, or he could stop the cause before it killed everyone inside. He made the choice that fit him. He split. One Rimuru stayed and began evacuating prisoners through safe tunnels of barrier light, guiding them toward exits with gentle force. The other Rimuru ran deeper, chasing the pulse. Ainz watched him split and felt a twist of annoyance and respect. Useful ability, dangerous ability. Ainz spoke to Demiurge. "Locate the source." Demiurge bowed. Already, they moved. As they went, more hybrids appeared, unleashed like guard dogs. Ainz did not waste time. He used spells that ended fights in single moments, not always by killing, sometimes by freezing, sometimes by sealing, sometimes by dropping a creature into a pit of darkness that simply removed it from the hallway. The guards and scientists who saw it went pale. This wasn't a soup fight. This was a ruler walking through obstacles like they were paperwork. In another corridor, the boys had arrived, because of course they had. Butcher had tracked the hints. MM had followed with grim determination. Huey and Starlight trailed, terrified but unable to stay away. They reached an open service door and stared inside. Huey's voice came out in a whisper. "This is real." MM's face hardened. "It always is." Starlight's jaw clenched. "I told you, this is what they hide." Butcher didn't speak. His eyes were locked on a stretcher in the hallway with a teen on it, shaking. His mouth tightened. Even Butcher had lines. Not many, but some. They moved quietly, avoiding cameras. Then a hybrid creature rounded the corner and saw them. It roared. Huey stumbled backward. Butcher raised a weapon. It would do nothing. Starlight stepped forward, hands glowing, preparing to blast it back. Then the creature slammed into an invisible wall that appeared between it and them. It bounced off and fell on its back, confused. Rimuru stepped into view, calm as ever. "Stay behind me," he said. Butcher stared at him. "You again." Rimuru's eyes flicked to Butcher's face and read the anger like it was written on paper. "I'm not your enemy," Rimuru said. Butcher sneered. "That's what every soup says before they break someone's spine." Rimuru didn't react to the insult. He looked at the teen on the stretcher. "I can help them." MM's voice was low. "Then do it." Rimuru nodded and placed a hand near the teen's chest without touching. A soft light spread, and the shaking eased. Huey let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Starlight watched Rimuru and felt the strange, painful hope again. Then a colder presence filled the hallway. Ainz appeared at the far end, Demiurge beside him. Butcher turned and froze. Even he could not pretend that sight was normal. Ainz's red eyes landed on the group. His gaze paused on Starlight, then on Butcher, then on Huey. Humans. Useful. Unpredictable. He spoke in a flat voice. "You are interfering." Butcher found his voice again fast because fear made him angry. "Yeah?" Butcher said. "We're stopping Vought." "What are you doing? Building a bloody dungeon?" Demiurge smiled politely, a smile that did not belong on a face like his. "My lord," Demiurge said, "these are local assets. They may be leveraged." Butcher bristled. "Don't call me." Rimuru cut in, calm but firm. "They're not assets. They're people." Ainz's skull turned slightly toward Rimuru. Rimuru met his gaze without flinching. For a moment, the two rulers stood like opposite poles of the same idea. Protect. Control. Then the facility shook. A deeper door rumbled open. A bright, ugly pulse rolled out like a shockwave. Lights burst. Screens died. The ripple was being forced open. Rimuru's other body, deeper inside, reached a chamber filled with machines. A ring-shaped device stood in the center. Cables ran into it like veins. Monitors showed unstable readings. Scientists ran around like ants in a storm. On a platform above, a Vought-led scientist shouted, "Keep it stable! Keep it stable!" Rimuru's eyes narrowed. "Stop!" The scientist spun. "Who the—" Rimuru raised a hand. Every screen froze. Every cable stiffened as if it had suddenly become hard clay. The scientist screamed, "You can't just— Do you know what happens if you—" Rimuru stepped closer. "Yes. People die." The scientist's face twisted. "This is progress." Rimuru's voice turned colder. "This is torture." He moved to shut the device down. But the ripple had momentum now, like a wheel already rolling downhill. The ring device sparked. A tear opened above it, smaller than the first tear in the sky, but denser, angrier. Something pressed against it from the other side. Not a person, not yet. A shape like a claw, or a horn, or both. The scientist screamed and ran. Rimuru felt it and stiffened. "This is not from this world, and it's not from mine." He tried to seal it with barriers. The tear resisted like it had learned to fight back. He could close it, but it would take focus. And if he focused only on that, the prisoners upstairs could die. Rimuru's jaw clenched. He split again, smaller this time. Thin copies acting as hands while his core mind stayed on the tear. He began to compress the space around it, slowly pushing it shut. Back in the hallway, Ainz felt the tear open. His red eyes flared. "That is a gate," he said. Demiurge's smile vanished. "My lord, this is dangerous." Ainz nodded once. "Yes." But his voice stayed calm. "Which means," Ainz said, "it must be controlled or destroyed." Rimuru's first body looked at Ainz. "Help me close it." Ainz's skull tilted. "Why should I?" Rimuru didn't plead. He stated a fact. "Because if something worse enters this world," Rimuru said, "it won't care about your plans, or mine." Ainz was silent for a beat. Then he lifted a hand. "Very well," he said. "Temporarily." He turned to Demiurge. "Guardians. Minimal collateral. Protect Nazaric interests." Demiurge bowed, smiling again. "Always." Ainz stepped forward, and the air tightened as he cast. This was not a flashy spell. It was heavy. It stabilized the space around the tear, locking it like a door frame held in place so it couldn't widen. Rimuru felt the change immediately. The tear stopped fighting as wildly. "Good," Rimuru said. Together, they did what neither Vought nor Homelander could imagine. They treated reality like a problem with rules. Rimuru compressed. Ainz anchored. The claw-like shape on the other side pushed once more. Then it slipped back. The tear shrank, trembling, and snapped shut. The machines in the chamber died with a final wheeze. Silence fell. For half a second, it felt like the whole facility sighed. Then the alarms stopped, not because someone turned them off, because the source of panic was gone. Rimuru released a slow breath. Ainz lowered his hand. Neither looked tired, the way a human would, but both carried a new weight. They had confirmed something. The ripple was not random. It could be forced, and Vought had tried. Upstairs, Rimuru's other body guided prisoners toward exits. Starlight and MM helped. Huey carried a child whose legs shook too much to walk. Butcher covered the rear, eyes scanning for Vought agents. For a moment, they moved like a team. Ainz watched this with an expression that was hard to read on a skull. Humans helping humans, he thought. It is inefficient, and yet it works sometimes. Rimuru returned to the hallway, rejoining his copies into one. He looked at the freed prisoners. He looked at the scared faces. Then he looked at Butcher. "This is why I'm here," Rimuru said quietly. Butcher stared back, jaw clenched. "Yeah," Butcher said. "And this is why I don't trust anyone with power." Rimuru didn't argue. He understood the fear. Ainz spoke, voice low. "Vought initiated this," Ainz said. "This facility proves intent." Starlight's eyes flashed. "We need evidence." Ainz turned his skull toward her. "Evidence can be created." Starlight stiffened. "That's not what I meant." Rimuru cut in. "We can take real evidence. Files, records, witnesses." Butcher let out a humorless laugh. "You think the courts work?" Rimuru's gaze stayed steady. "I think people matter." Butcher's face twisted. He looked away, like the idea annoyed him, because part of him wanted it to be true. Demiurge stepped closer, smiling. "My lord," he said softly, "this world is fragile. We could stabilize it quickly." Rimuru heard the tone and felt a chill. "Stabilize," Rimuru repeated. "How?" Demiurge's smile widened just a fraction. "Remove key obstacles." Rimuru's voice sharpened. "No." Ainz paused. This was the real test. Would Ainz let his guardians do what came naturally? Or would he hold the leash? Ainz's hand lifted slightly. "Demiurge," he said calmly, "restrain your imagination." Demiurge bowed, still smiling. "As you command." Rimuru watched Ainz carefully. He saw what most people wouldn't. Ainz didn't stop Demiurge because he suddenly became kind. He stopped him because he understood that careless domination would create 100 new enemies, and the ripple problem required focus. It was control, not mercy. But control could still prevent horror. For now. They led the freed people out into the night through hidden routes. The river above the facility flowed like nothing happened. By sunrise, Vought crews would arrive to scrub the place clean. But they were too late. The boys had files. Starlight had faces. Rimuru had stabilized victims who could speak. Ainz had seen the machines and memorized their structure like a blueprint in his mind. They all left with something. And as Rimuru stepped into the air outside, he felt the ripple again. Not opening, but throbbing, like a bruise. It had been pressed. It had been forced. It had been closed. But it remembered. In Vought Tower, Ashley watched reports come in and started shaking. "They found the annex," she whispered. "They found it." The woman with politician eyes didn't scream. She didn't panic. She looked thoughtful. "Then we changed the approach," she said. Ashley's voice cracked. "How?" "They are. One is a slime god. The other is a skeleton wizard. And they made Homelander look like a toddler." The woman's eyes stayed cool. "We don't fight gods." She leaned forward. "We turn the world against them." On a rooftop later that day, Rimuru stared at his agreement papers, now stained and wrinkled from the night. He didn't throw them away. He held them tighter, because he had seen what the other option looked like, and he refused it. Deep underground, Ainz stood in silence while Albedo reported new information. "My lord," she said, "the humans will now fear you more than ever." Ainz's red eyes glowed softly. "Then fear will be managed," he said. He paused. And in the private place inside him, where the human part still existed, a thought formed. Small, but sharp. If fear grows too large, it becomes chaos. Chaos invites the gate. And Ainz did not like chaos. Neither did Rimuru. They were different in almost every way. But the crack in reality did not care about differences. It only cared that the world was tearing. And now, it knew exactly where to tear next. 2 weeks later, the city had learned a new habit. It looked up more often. Rimuru walked through a small clinic that used to be a dentist office. Now it was full of folding beds and tired people who didn't trust hospitals anymore. There were no Vought logos, no cameras, just a handwritten sign on the door. No filming. A volunteer tried to hand Rimuru a clipboard. He paused the way a person pauses before stepping on a rake. The volunteer blinked at him. "We have to track visitors." Rimuru took the clipboard anyway. He wrote his name. Then he saw the line again. Role title. He stared at it like it was a personal enemy. Behind him, a child whispered, "That's him." Rimuru wrote, very carefully, the same word he'd written before. Helper. He handed the clipboard back and walked into the room. He didn't do big miracles for show. He worked like a leader. He checked supplies. He listened to doctors. He stabilized the patients who had been damaged by Compound 5 and the Ripple's strange pulse. He also listened to the city's mood. People were splitting into camps. Some made murals of him on brick walls and called him proof that real heroes could exist. Others called him a foreign weapon, a walking disaster, a thing that would bring worse things through the crack in the world. The problem was, both groups were loud, and Vought knew how to aim loud people like arrows. Rimuru felt that pressure now, not physical, social. It pressed in from every direction. Starlight stood in the doorway, hood up, eyes scanning the street first, like a habit she couldn't break. "You're getting popular," she said. Rimuru smiled faintly. "I'm getting discussed." Starlight walked inside. Vought is pushing it hard. Rimuru's eyes softened. "They're afraid." "They're angry," Starlight corrected, "and when they're angry, they pick someone to blame." Rimuru looked at a man asleep on a bed, his arms wrapped in bandages, where his skin had tried to harden into armor. "Blame doesn't fix anything," Rimuru said. Starlight let out a short laugh with no joy. "Tell them." Rimuru didn't answer right away. He didn't pretend he had an easy solution. Instead, he asked, "How is Huey?" Starlight's expression changed slightly. Warmer. Then tense again. "He's scared," she admitted. "But he keeps showing up." Rimuru nodded once. "That means he's brave." Starlight stared at him. "You say that like bravery is normal." "In my home," Rimuru said, "bravery became normal because we needed it." Starlight leaned against the wall and looked around the clinic. "This place, you built it fast." "I didn't build it," Rimuru said. "People did. I only helped connect them." Starlight's eyes narrowed, like she was trying to find the trick. Then she looked away. "No one does that here," she said quietly. Rimuru heard what she meant. No one gives power away here. Across the city, deep under the river, Ainz Ooal gown stood in a corridor that used to belong to Vought. It didn't anymore. Not because Ainz had put up a flag, because every camera that looked at the corridor went black. Every lock stopped working. Every guard who entered forgot why they came and left. Shaking. Ainz had not announced his base to the world. He didn't need applause. He needed control. Albedo approached, her steps quiet. "My lord," she said, "our perimeter is secure. Demiurge has mapped 3 additional facilities above ground." Ainz nodded slowly. Inside, the human part of him whispered a thought he didn't like. Secure. For now. His undead calm crushed the worry down into a manageable shape. Then he spoke in the voice he used when others listened. "Continue," he said, "and keep casualties low. We do not invite pointless wars." Albedo's eyes flashed. "If you command it." Ainz paused. Then he added, because he knew what his followers were like. "We do not harm civilians without reason." Albedo bowed deeper. "Understood." When she left, Ainz turned toward a floating orb that showed public broadcasts. A news anchor spoke with a serious face. "Federal officials are calling for immediate action," she said. "After the Hope Day event and the river facility discovery, lawmakers are proposing the Soup Accountability and Foreign Threat Act. The targets are clear. The unknown outsiders who entered our world." A graphic flashed. Rimuru Tempest Unknown, Biology High Risk, Ainz Ooal Gown Unknown Powers, Extreme risk. Ainz's red eyes burned brighter. So, this is their weapon now. Paper with teeth. He almost found it funny. Almost. Demiurge appeared again, smiling. "My lord," Demiurge said, "they are building a cage made of laws. They will claim it is for safety." Ainz's skull tilted. "And then?" "Then they will demand compliance," Demiurge replied. "And if compliance fails, they will create a reason to attack." Ainz's hand tightened slightly. A simple question rose inside him. If they push too far, do I crush them? His next thought was colder. If I crush them openly, will the gate open wider? Ainz stared at the broadcast again. He didn't like being watched. He liked watching. And the ripple problem was still there, pulsing under everything like a bruised heartbeat. In a Vought meeting room, the calm man in the suit watched graphs climb. Fear, anger, engagement, donations, approval ratings. Ashley Barrett sat rigid in her chair, clutching a stress ball like it was the last oxygen on Earth. "This is insane," she whispered. "You're making people panic." The calm man didn't look at her. People panic easily. That is why it works. The woman with politician eyes set a folder on the table. "Phase 2 begins today," she said. Ashley swallowed. "What is Phase 2? The woman's tone stayed smooth. "We offer them a choice." Ashley blinked. "A choice? A leash!" Ashley blurted, then slapped a hand over her mouth like she'd cursed. The calm man finally looked at her. "Yes," he said simply. "A leash." Ashley's voice shook. "And if they don't take it?" The woman smiled faintly. "Then we make sure the public begs us to use force." A door opened. A man entered with a laptop and shaking hands. "We have the new device ready," he said. Ashley's eyes widened. "You built another one?" The man nodded. "It's better. It uses data from the last pulse." The calm man's eyes sharpened. "From the river facility." The man swallowed. "Yes." The woman leaned forward. "Will it open the crack?" The man hesitated. "It will stabilize a doorway for a short time." Ashley's throat tightened. "A doorway to what?" No one answered her, because the honest answer was not something you said out loud. To power, to whatever comes through, to the next product. The calm man stood. "Bring in the first outsider." Ashley's voice squeaked. "Which one?" The calm man's eyes stayed steady. "The one who wants to be liked." Rimuru felt the invitation before he saw the messenger. Not by magic, by pattern. A black car, 2 men in suits, a polite tone that didn't match their eyes. They arrived outside the clinic as if it was a normal business appointment. The taller man smiled. "Rimuru Tempest." Rimuru stepped into the doorway, keeping his body between the men and the patients inside. "Yes. We're here on behalf of a federal task force," the man said. "We want to talk. Privately." Rimuru's expression didn't change much, but his mind went quiet and sharp. Starlight stood behind him in the hall, listening. Rimuru asked, "About what?" The man held up a badge and a folder. "Your status, your legal situation, your safety." Rimuru looked at the folder like it might bite. "I haven't harmed anyone," he said. "This isn't an accusation," the man replied smoothly. "It's an opportunity." Rimuru didn't move. "Say it plainly." The man's smile tightened. "We can grant you protection, resources, a formal role, a legal framework. You continue your work, under supervision." Starlight whispered from behind, "Don't." Rimuru heard her anyway. He kept his voice calm. "And if I refuse?" The man's eyes flicked to the clinic, to the neighborhood, to the people on the sidewalk watching. "If you refuse," he said softly, "we can't guarantee what happens when fear spreads. Fear makes people do stupid things." Rimuru's gaze stayed steady. "That sounds like a threat." The man raised his hand slightly. "It's a warning." Rimuru took the folder. He opened it. It was pages of rules, compliance, reporting, mandatory location tracking, restrictions on movement, restrictions on power demonstrations. The language was simple enough for the public to accept, but the intent was clear. Be owned or be hunted. Rimuru looked up. Who wrote this? The man didn't answer directly. People who want the world safe. Rimuru's eyes narrowed. People who want the world controlled. He handed the folder back. I won't sign this, Rimuru said. The man's smile faded for the first time. Rimuru. Rimuru's voice stayed gentle, but it carried weight. I will follow fair rules, he said. Rules that protect people, not rules that turn me into a weapon. The man's jaw clenched. Then you leave us no choice. Rimuru tilted his head. You always had choices. The black car door opened behind the men. Another figure stepped out. Homelander. He didn't land with a crash. He floated down like a god arriving at a temple. People on the street froze. Some cheered, nervous and automatic. Some backed away. Homelander smiled at the crowd, then looked at Rimuru. Hi, Homelander said, voice bright. I'm here to welcome you properly. Starlight's face hardened. Rimuru's eyes stayed calm. We already met. Briefly. Homelander's smile thinned. And you embarrassed me. Rimuru didn't deny it. I was busy saving lives. Homelander's eyes flicked toward the clinic. Saving lives. Cute. He leaned closer, lowering his voice so only Rimuru could hear. You're going to leave, Homelander said, or you're going to kneel. You don't get a third option. Rimuru's tone stayed even. No. Homelander's smile didn't move, but the air around him felt hotter. You know what I can do, Homelander whispered. Rimuru looked him straight in the eyes. And I know what you choose to do, Rimuru replied. That landed like a slap. Homelander's heat vision flickered at the edges, not firing yet, but threatening. Rimuru didn't raise a fist. He raised a barrier. It formed between Homelander and the clinic door, invisible until it caught the light. Clear. Solid. Non-negotiable. Homelander stared at it, then back at Rimuru. You think this protects you? Homelander asked. It protects them, Rimuru said, and he meant the people behind him. Homelander's eyes flared. Then, very slowly, he smiled again. Fine, Homelander said loudly, turning to the crowd like a performer. No problem. We'll do this the nice way. He stepped back, floated up a few feet, and spoke like he was announcing a game. Rimuru Tempest refuses to work with us, Homelander declared. So the government will do what it must. Rimuru didn't move. He didn't chase. He didn't attack. He watched Homelander fly away, leaving fear behind like exhaust. Starlight stepped beside Rimuru, voice low. That was bait. Rimuru nodded. Yes. Huey, who had been inside the clinic helping carry water, stepped out, eyes wide. They're going to come back, he said. Rimuru looked down at him, calm and honest. Yes, Rimuru said, but we'll be ready. That same night, Ainz received his own offer. It came through a channel that tried very hard to look respectful. A secure radio frequency, a polite voice, coordinates to a neutral location. Ainz arrived alone, because alone meant something different when you could summon armies in seconds. He stood inside a silent warehouse. Moonlight cut through broken windows. A woman in a coat walked in with 2 guards who tried not to shake. She stopped far away. She didn't pretend to be brave. She pretended to be prepared. Ainz Ooal gown, she said. I represent parties who understand power. Ainz's red eyes watched her. Speak. She held out a small case and opened it. Inside was a metal coin, stamped with a seal. A treaty token, dressed up as something official. We can offer you territory, she said. Secrecy, non-interference. A place you can rule quietly. Ainz didn't laugh, but if he had lips, he might have. You offer me, Ainz said, what I can take. Her voice stayed steady. We offer you legitimacy, a way to exist without constant conflict. Ainz's skull tilted. And in exchange? Her eyes didn't blink. In exchange, you do not interfere with Vought's operations. You do not assist Rimuru Tempest. You do not expose state assets. Ainz was silent. He could feel the trap's shape now. They wanted him isolated. They wanted Rimuru alone, because Rimuru would hesitate to kill. They wanted Ainz quiet, because Ainz would not. Ainz lifted a gloved hand. The coin rose into the air. Then it crushed into dust without touching anything. The woman flinched despite herself. Ainz's voice stayed calm. "I will not be managed," he said. The woman swallowed. "Then you will be treated as hostile." Ainz took a slow step forward. The guards raised rifles. Their hands shook. Ainz spoke one simple sentence. "If you open the gate again," Ainz said, "I will remove the ones responsible." The woman's face tightened. "You don't know what we're doing." Ainz's red eyes burned brighter. "That," he said, "is the problem." He turned and walked away, leaving the warehouse colder than before. Behind him, Demiurge appeared from a shadow like he had always been there. "My lord," Demiurge said softly, "shall I begin the removal list?" Ainz paused. He imagined it. Vought's leaders dropping like chess pieces. It would be easy, and it would set this world on fire. "Fire feeds cracks." "No," Ainz said. Demiurge's smile twitched. "As you command." Ainz continued walking. His mind was already on the real threat, because he could feel it now. The ripple was not just bruised. It was being pulled open again. Vought chose their battlefield carefully. Not a street, not a stadium, a tower, Vought Tower itself. They scheduled a national address for noon. The government and Vought together, a united front. They announced new emergency rules, new task forces, new safety measures. And behind the scenes, deep in the building, the new ring device was already humming. It wasn't powered by magic. It was powered by stolen data, stolen samples, and one simple human mistake. They believed if they could force the doorway open long enough, they could pull power out and bottle it. A new generation of soups. Soups who wouldn't fear Homelander. Soups who could replace outsiders. Soups who could be owned. At 11:58, Butcher watched the broadcast timer on a stolen monitor and spat into a sink. "Bastards," he muttered. Huey stood behind him, pale. "What's the plan?" Butcher's eyes were hard. "We tell the truth." MM held a drive in his hand. "We have the files. We have the river facility logs. We have recordings." Frenchie nodded. "And we have Starlight's testimony." Starlight stood with her arms crossed, jaw tight. "They'll call it fake." Butcher grinned. "Then we make it impossible to ignore." He pointed at the wiring Frenchie had set up. They weren't going to hack the internet. They were going to hijack the one thing Vought couldn't stand losing. Their own spotlight. At noon, the broadcast began. The calm man in a suit stood beside a podium. The politician-faced woman stood nearby. Flags behind them. They spoke about safety, about foreign threats, about heroism. And then, for the first time in years, the Vought broadcast did something it almost never did. It glitched. The screen cut to a shaky hallway under the river. People in cells. The ring device. The word containment on a red sign. A voice played over it. A scientist's voice, recorded. "We're forcing the anomaly. Keep it stable." Then Starlight's voice, raw and real. "This is what they hide. This is who they are." The feed cut again to Butcher's face for half a second. He didn't smile. He looked tired and furious. "Vought did Hope Day," he said. "Vought built the gate. Vought is killing people for profit." The broadcast snapped back to the podium. Ashley, off camera, screamed. The calm man's face didn't change much, but his eyes sharpened. Then the building shook. Not from panic, from the device. The ring under the tower pulsed. The ripple responded like a wound being picked. A tear opened in the air behind the stage. The crowd gasped. People screamed. Security rushed forward. The calm man's voice rose, smooth and loud. "This is what we warned about," he shouted. "This is why we need control." It was perfect. It was also wrong. Because what pushed through the tear was not a new soup. It was not a weapon that could be sold. It was a shape that didn't belong. Like a dark hand made of pressure and hunger, pressing against the air. The tear widened. Wind roared through the plaza, dragging papers and flags into the sky. People fell to their knees. And in the middle of it, Homelander looked up, and for the first time, his face showed real confusion. "What is that?" he whispered. Rimuru arrived first, because Rimuru listened for suffering like it was a siren. He appeared above the crowd, hovering without drama, eyes locked on the tear. Ainz arrived second, because Ainz watched for threats like it was survival. He appeared on a nearby rooftop, red eyes burning, staff in hand. The crowd saw them and screamed louder, because fear doesn't sort itself neatly. Rimuru didn't look at the crowd. He didn't look at the cameras. He looked at the tear. "It's bigger," Rimuru said quietly. Ainz's voice came from the rooftop, cold and clear. "They forced it again," Ainz said. Homelander floated up, eyes blazing, trying to reclaim his role. "I'll handle it," he snapped. He flew straight at the tear and fired heat vision into the darkness. For a second, it looked brave. Then the heat vanished into the void like a flashlight pointed into deep water. The dark shape pushed harder. A pressure slammed into Homelander and threw him back through the air like a toy. He crashed into the stage, splintering it. The crowd screamed. Cameras shook. Homelander rose fast, furious and shaken, like a bully who had just been punched by something that didn't care about his crown. Rimuru moved. He formed a massive barrier dome over the crowd, not just a wall, a shelter. It covered the entire plaza like a clear sky lid. People inside felt the wind stop. The pressure eased. They stared up, wide-eyed. Ainz raised his hand and cast stabilizing magic around the tear, anchoring space the way he had under the river. The tear stopped widening for a moment, but it didn't close. It resisted, like something on the other side had learned to pull. Rimuru looked toward the tower. He could sense the machine below, the ring device feeding the doorway. "Source is inside," Rimuru said. Ainz's red eyes narrowed. "Then destroy it." Rimuru hesitated for only a breath. "There are civilians," Rimuru said. Ainz's voice didn't soften. "And there will be more dead civilians if you hesitate." Rimuru's jaw tightened. He didn't like Ainz's tone, but he didn't deny the logic. Rimuru split. One Rimuru stayed holding the barrier dome and keeping people calm, guiding them toward exits through safe corridors of light. The other Rimuru dove into Vought Tower like a meteor that refused to harm the building. He passed through walls without blowing them apart, slipping through layers of steel and glass like they were doors. Inside, Vought security teams fired. The bullets slowed, stopped, and dropped to the floor, pinned by invisible force. Rimuru didn't waste words. "Where is the machine?" he asked, voice calm. A guard tried to run. Rimuru gently locked the floor around the guard's shoes like clear glue. "Please," Rimuru said, "don't make this harder." Above, Ainz stepped closer to the edge of the roof. He watched the tear fight his anchor spell. He felt the pressure pushing back. It wasn't a mind, not like a person. It was an instinct, a hunger. Ainz did not like things you couldn't negotiate with. Homelander launched himself again, not at the tear this time, but at Ainz, because Homelander could not stand the idea that someone else was doing his job better. "You!" Homelander screamed, slamming into Ainz's barrier. He hit it once, twice, 3 times. Ainz didn't move. He looked down at Homelander like he was looking at an insect trapped under a cup. "You are loud," Ainz said. Homelander's face twisted. "I'm the strongest." Ainz lifted one hand. A dark pressure clamped onto Homelander's chest and throat. Not killing, not crushing, just holding. Enough to silence him. Homelander's eyes bulged in rage as he fought against it. He pushed. He strained. He twitched like a man trying to lift a car off himself. He was strong. But Ainz was not wrestling him. Ainz was writing a rule on the air. "Stay." Homelander's voice came out as a choke. Ainz's red eyes didn't blink. He could end this, a small part of him whispered. One spell, one moment. Ainz didn't do it, not because he respected Homelander, because he could feel the tear, because the tear fed on chaos, because killing the world symbol live on camera would turn panic into a wildfire, and wildfire would feed the crack. So Ainz held the bully in place and looked back to the real enemy. Close, Ainz murmured to the air, reinforcing the anchor. Below, in the core chamber of Vought Tower, Rimuru found the ring device. It was larger than the river version, cleaner, more stable. Scientists and executives stood behind glass, watching like they were in a theater. The calm man in the suit was there too, eyes fixed on a monitor. He saw Rimuru and didn't flinch. He acted like this was a business meeting. "You came," the calm man said through a speaker. Rimuru stared at him, expression hard. "Stop this." The calm man's voice stayed smooth. "We're saving the world from you." Rimuru's eyes narrowed. "By opening a doorway you don't understand." "We understand enough," the calm man said. "Enough to take control." Rimuru lifted a hand toward the machine. The calm man spoke quickly. "If you destroy it, the tear above will destabilize. People will die." Rimuru froze for a fraction of a second. Not because he believed the man, because the risk could be real. The calm man saw the pause and pushed. "You want to be a hero?" he asked. "Then sign. Join us. Let us guide your power safely." A second screen flashed a document. A contract. A leash. Rimuru's mouth tightened. Raphael's voice in his mind stayed calm. Analysis. Machine is maintaining tier stability. Destruction without containment may cause brief expansion. Solution. Isolate, compress, then remove power source. Rimuru's eyes sharpened. He didn't answer the contract. He answered the truth. "You don't want safety," Rimuru said. "You want ownership." The calm man's voice stayed flat. "Ownership is safety." Rimuru's tone turned colder. "No. Ownership is fear." He moved. Barriers formed around the ring device like layers of clear armor, sealing its pulse in a tight shell. The humming pitch rose as the machine fought against the seal. The scientist screamed, "Stop him!" Security slammed against barriers and bounced off like waves off a cliff. Rimuru didn't touch any of them. He focused on the machine like a surgeon. He compressed the barriers tighter, squeezing the machine's pulse inward until the humming became a thin whine. Then, gently, he shifted the sealed bubble of space containing the machine away from the building structure. He lifted it. The entire ring device, sealed inside a clear sphere, floated off the floor. The calm man's eyes finally widened. Not fear. Surprise. Rimuru looked at him through the glass. "You don't get to do this to people," Rimuru said. Then he vanished upward with the sealed sphere. Outside, above the plaza, the tear shuddered. For a moment, it tried to widen violently, like a mouth snapping open. Ainz felt it and instantly reinforced the anchor spell. Rimuru appeared in the sky, holding the sealed machine sphere like a captured storm. "I have it," Rimuru said. Ainz's red eyes narrowed. "Good. Remove it from the area." Rimuru didn't argue. He shot upward, taking it far above the dome, away from civilians. Then he compressed the barriers again. Harder this time, until the machine inside crumpled like metal in a trash compactor. The pulse died. The tear above the plaza shrank like a punctured bubble. The dark hunger on the other side pushed once, desperate, then slipped back. The tear snapped shut. Silence crashed down after the roar. The wind stopped. Flags fell limp. People inside Rimuru's dome stared at the calm sky like they didn't trust it. Rimuru lowered the dome slowly, letting normal air back in. Ainz released his anchor spell and turned his skull slightly, scanning for further threats. Homelander, freed as Ainz's hold eased, stumbled mid-air, gasping like he hated that his body had done it. He hovered above the stage rubble, eyes wild. He looked at the crowd, then at Rimuru, then at Ainz. He realized something in that moment. This wasn't about being the strongest anymore. This was about being replaced. His face twisted into a smile that looked like it hurt. "This isn't over," Homelander whispered. He flew away before anyone could stop him, not because he was beaten into the ground, but because staying would mean facing the cameras while he wasn't in charge. Below, the calm man in the suit was already speaking into a microphone, trying to recover the narrative. But the hijacked footage had already spread. The public had seen the device, the tear, the truth, and they had seen who closed it. Butcher watched the sky from a nearby rooftop, cigarette unlit in his hand. Huey stood beside him, shaking. We did it," Huey said. Butcher didn't smile. "We survived it," he corrected. Starlight looked out at the crowd. Some people were chanting Rimuru's name now. Others were screaming that he was a threat. The split was still there, but something had changed. People had seen Vought fail publicly. They had seen Homelander fall back. And they had seen that outsiders could act without asking for applause. Exhaled slowly. What happens now? Rimuru floated down to street level, landing gently. He looked around at the mess and the faces. He knew he had just become a bigger target. He accepted it. Ainz appeared beside him, stepping out of shadow like a door. He didn't stand too close. He didn't pretend they were friends. But he stood near enough that the message was clear. Not alone. A camera crew tried to rush forward. Someone shoved a mic toward Rimuru's face. "Are you with Vought?" the reporter shouted. "Are you a threat? Are you here to rule us?" Rimuru looked at the mic, then at the reporter. He answered in simple words. "I'm here to stop people from getting hurt," he said. "That's all." Another mic shoved toward Ainz. "What are you?" someone yelled. "Are you death?" Ainz stared at the crowd. The honest answer was complicated. So he chose a useful one. "I am not your product," Ainz said, "and I am not your toy." His red eyes moved toward the tower. "If you open the gate again," Ainz said calmly, "I will stop you." It wasn't a speech. It was a warning stamped into the air. Rimuru glanced at Ainz, then spoke again, softer. "We don't have to be enemies," Rimuru said to the crowd, "but we do need rules that protect people, not rules that trap them." He turned and looked at Starlight, Huey, and even Butcher. Rimuru didn't trust Butcher, but he understood him more now. "I'll keep doing my work," Rimuru said. "If you want to help, help." Ainz's skull tilted slightly. He didn't offer warmth. He offered structure. "I will maintain my own domain," Ainz said. "Do not trespass. Do not threaten my people. In return, I will not interfere with yours unless you endanger the world." Butcher barked a short laugh from the rooftop. Listen to him, talking like he owns the place. Ainz looked up at Butcher. For a second, Butcher felt something cold brush his spine, like a hand reminding him that jokes had limits. Then Ainz looked away. Rimuru looked up at Butcher too, calm. "We're done for today," Rimuru said quietly. "But this world isn't done." Butcher didn't answer. He didn't know how to answer a being that powerful, choosing to speak like a person. And that bothered him more than fear did. That night, the city didn't celebrate. It argued. It mourned. It replayed clips until the pixels broke. Vought tried to deny, tried to distract, tried to blame outsiders, but their tower had trembled, live in front of everyone. Their control had cracked. In small neighborhoods, people taped handwritten signs on doors. No Vought. In other neighborhoods, people taped different signs. No monsters. The world had not become simple. It had become honest about how messy it already was. And somewhere beneath the river, in a quiet corridor that used to belong to Vought, Ainz stood alone with his thoughts. He had made a choice. Not to conquer openly, not to slaughter. To remain a shadow with boundaries. He didn't do it for human goodness. He did it because a broken world would invite the gate again. And because Nazarick needed stability to survive. Across town, in a small clinic, Rimuru sat at a desk with his agreement papers spread out. He rewrote parts, simplified words, removed anything that sounded like ownership. He was building rules again. Not to cage power, to protect people from it. He whispered, mostly to himself, responsibility shouldn't be something you sell. Outside, the sky was quiet, but the bruise in reality still existed. And now, it had two guardians who refused to be owned. Morning came with rain, not dramatic rain, just normal rain that made streets slick and umbrellas flip inside out. Rimuru stood in the clinic doorway again. A new volunteer approached, holding another clipboard, looking embarrassed. "I'm sorry," the volunteer said. "The city sent an inspector. They said we have to register you as a special category." Rimuru stared at the clipboard like it had personally offended him. He took it. He read the line out loud because it was so ridiculous, it felt unreal. Entity classification, foreign superhuman operative. Rimuru blinked. Then he sighed, long and tired. "That's not my name," he said. The volunteer looked apologetic. "I know, but it's the form." Rimuru picked up a pen. He crossed out the long title with one clean line. He wrote 2 words beneath it. Helper. Friend. He handed it back with a gentle smile. "Tell them that's what I am," Rimuru said. The volunteer nodded like he might cry, then hurried away. Across town, in a quiet underground hall lit by steady magical light, a lesser servant approached Ainz with a stack of papers stolen from above-ground offices. "My lord," the servant said, voice shaking, "these are documents about you." Ainz looked down at the top page. It had his name, misspelled twice. It called him an unknown supervariant. It listed possible containment methods. Ainz stared at it for a long time. Then he spoke, calm and deadly polite. "This is incorrect." He lifted a finger and wrote on the paper without ink, the letters forming like heat marks. Ainz Ooal gown. Sorcerer King. He paused, then added a second line, because it mattered more than the title. Not for sale. He set the papers aside. Albedo watched him, eyes shining. "My lord, shall we punish them for their disrespect?" Ainz was silent. He thought of the tier above the tower. He thought of the hungry shape pressing through. He thought of how close the world had come to ripping open. "No," Ainz said at last. "Not yet." Albedo bowed, though she did not look happy. Ainz stood and walked forward, robes moving like shadow. He didn't do it for kindness. He did it for control. And for the first time since arriving, he understood a simple truth about this world. You could win every fight and still lose the future. In a dim apartment, Huey watched the rain on the window and tried to breathe normally. Starlight sat beside him, tired but present. "I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop," Huey admitted. Starlight nodded. "It will." Huey swallowed. "So, what do we do?" Starlight looked at the city, at the billboards, at the people hurrying through rain. "We keep choosing the right thing," she said, "even when it's not popular." Huey let out a shaky laugh. "That's hard." Starlight's mouth twitched into a small smile. "Yeah," she said, "welcome to it." On a rooftop not far away, Butcher watched the clinic door from across the street. Cigarette finally lit. He saw Rimuru help a man into a wheelchair without making a show of it. He saw no cameras, no merch, no smiles for profit. Butcher exhaled smoke and muttered, "Don't get comfortable." He didn't know who he was talking to. Maybe to Rimuru, maybe to himself. Because even if gods walked the streets, this world still had teeth. And teeth always tried to bite. The rain kept falling. The city kept arguing. But somewhere in the middle of all the noise, a new pattern had formed. Power, for once, was not wearing a logo. It was doing work, quietly, stubbornly. And the world, even this broken world, had to live with that now.